Welcome to the Cincy Postcast. I'm Kevin Wallace, and boy, do we have a fantastic show for you today, primarily because I'm not on this episode. That's right. I am recording this intro as I edit it. I haven't even listened to the show. I'm recording it before I edit it. But Grayson and Chief got you covered, and I'm going to guess that they talk about Tah Brian Anunga, the latest signing for FC Cincinnati, that for some reason nobody seems to believe the Post when the Post announces or reports or tweets out or skeets out these things, whatever it is. I just gotta say, the Post has a fantastic track record, folks. Matt Miazga, Brenner, Jurgen Locadia, Barreal, Lucho Acosta. The list goes on and on and on. Okay, Transfer Market has referred to us as mostly reliable. So what do you know? Okay, I don't know what else they're going to get into. I gave them some Patreon questions to answer. I don't know if they did it. I can't wait to find out with you. So yeah, here is a fantastic episode of the Postcast. Okay, I lied. Actually, right before we get into this, I do want to say they recorded this earlier this morning on Sunday, and some other news came out since then. So let me just address it very quickly here for you. Lucho Acosta did not report to camp. This is sent out by Tom Bogert. He had the story. I will say he had the story pretty quickly. If you're reading between the lines here, I think FC Cincinnati wanted to get this story out pretty quickly. Lucho has done this in the past, but we know he is desperate to leave. Folks, I think you got to read the tea leaves here and say that he is gone. It's just a matter of how. It's a matter of if this is a buyout situation, if the pressure is on Lucho's agent to actually get some money coming back to FC Cincinnati. But if I were betting, I would say Lucho Acosta does not play 1 minute for FC Cincinnati for the remainder of his career. Disappointing end. We can talk about what this does to his legacy later on when we figure out exactly how all of this shakes out and goes down. I will say, just shooting from the hip here, does feel like he gets knocked down a couple pegs in the city's hero department. Okay, so we'll see how the rest of this saga plays out. But not reporting to camp. Again, he's done this before. I suppose there's still technically an avenue for him to come back here, but I think this door is pretty well shut. Okay, I think this is that. So like I said, I am not on the rest of this episode. You're welcome. Enjoy the Chief and Grayson. I know I will. Like I said, I still haven't listened to it yet. So I can't wait to edit what these guys talked about. Can't wait to cut basically everything that they talked about. No. We'll be nice to them. So enjoy the rest of this episode. You get it without me. I will be back next week. Here you go.
Oh, and joining me to talk about all of that and more is Grayson. No, Kevin. Grayson, how are you feeling today?
I feel good. I feel well rested. I feel like I got to sleep in really late today, and we got a great had a great Sunday.
Great Sunday. And in no way are we recording this on Sunday morning so that I can watch the Buccaneers lose to Washington tonight. Yeah. I'm not a morning person, but that's my level of commitment to inflicting misery on myself in the playoffs. So
that's fair.
It is indeed. That's true. We're recording. We're here. We're live. Grayson, you have not yet reached Park City, Utah, correct?
Correct. But the strike is over. We did it.
We did it. I was listening back a little bit to that. I don't usually listen back to the episodes. I was upset at myself that we didn't make more jokes about the fact that we were referring to each mountain as being unionized. Like, were they having a rocky relationship with employees? What's the just things bad? An avalanche of problems being created by the management worker relations. There's so much to go on with that we just missed last week.
If you're casting blame on the labor dispute, you gotta think it's the mountain's fault.
Always. I mean, the mountain, it's Big Mountain. You can't side with Big Mountain. That's awful. It has all the power in this situation. We'll put that out there. So anyway, it's Sunday morning. We're recording. I don't know. Where do you want to begin? It feels like it's been a newsy week for an off season, and it feels like the off season is sort of circling a little bit to a close here with FC Cincinnati as the team gets ready to report to Florida, to Clearwater. Players getting ready to come back to Cincinnati to begin the setup to training or whatever the hell it is they do before they go out. It feels like the offseason flew by, yet we haven't played a game since November. Am I weird with that?
Yeah, I mean, you're not weird with that specifically.
Well, okay, fair enough.
It does feel like the offseason has flown by. I mean, I think pitchers and catchers are reporting today. Based on news. And so we'll see, I guess, Monday or whatever, who's in and who's out of camp. But it feels like there's been something like going on most of the time. Like we haven't had time to do, Rebel Moon Part 2. We haven't had time to watch that multi-part Netflix Jerry Springer documentary.
I'm worried about the Jerry Springer documentary. I don't know that that's going to
watch it. I don't think they're going to do him justice.
I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking, you know what? I enjoy the memory I have of Jerry Springer as kind of, he hosted this weird show, but was otherwise a pretty good dude. My dad knows him on a personal level. I don't know that I want to see everyone who now feels comfortable going on TV and saying nasty things that they would never have said in real life that may or may not be true.
I don't think, yeah. And I think that there's a conception among like maybe the broader nation of who Jerry Springer is that probably doesn't match with what your conception of Jerry Springer is if you grew up in Cincinnati or you knew him before the show or you're just familiar with some of his background and stuff. And I'm also not a huge fan of like any of these pop culture, recent nostalgia documentary series that they've done. I haven't watched all of them, but I do blame them on, I would say the progenitor of this stuff is the I love the 80s. And when they switched over to like I love the 90s,
right?
And you have people who, you get, the least funny comedians that you could find to talk about, NSYNC. Like this is just people talking about stuff. Like it's not like it's often not insightful. And then the worst part of it is when they try to kind of add a meta narrative on the back end. If like with like, like that Woodstock 99 thing,
right?
Where you're like, if you really think about it, Fred Durst caused Trump.
I mean, I want to believe that. I mean, anyone that went on stage unironically wearing a red Yankees hat does deserve to at least be eviscerated in the court of public opinion for their fashion choices alone.
Yes, I'm not going to watch the Yacht Rock thing. I'm probably not going to watch the Jerry Springer thing. I'd rather just watch a couple of Jerry Springer shows and then draw our own conclusions about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to explain to people who didn't grow up in the 90s just kind of what a wild place America was in the 90s, where it was, the most popular things on television were South Park, Beavis and Butthead, 90s era WWF wrestling, which had a certain flavor to it. And, the president was on TV talking about, having a zipper problem. Just America was just a wild place in the 90s, and everything was a product of its time and place. And with a lot of these recent documentaries like that, I'm reminded of the quote from The Sopranos, remember when is the lowest form of conversation. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these things that where you do this retrospective without the benefit of a significant amount of time having passed for reflection and seeing where things fit in its larger place in the history of this country, even the pop culture history of this country, just devolves into remember when. And I don't know that that's useful to me. And also, there is such a competition in the media landscape with a lot of this stuff that it does sort of, there is a nuclear arms race, and that you have to say something more outlandish in each one of these things in order to get people to pay attention to your particular project. So there isn't a market on streaming platforms for a retrospective of the Jerry Springer show that is even and even-handed, or a retrospective of Jerry Springer the person that is even-handed. The money is in having 3 or 4 clips that go viral that are just completely like people saying out-of-pocket things or doing whatever, or it's edited in such a way to make it seem like they're saying out-of-pocket things because they need to get those streaming hours up before everyone moves on to the next thing. And I don't know that that's good for anyone involved. I don't know that that's good for the genre. I don't know that that's good for the way we remember history or the way history is preserved in this sort of sense. So I decline to participate.
Yeah. I agree 100%. I, again, have not seen the documentary. I don't really plan to, but my gut reaction on all of it is that it's just going to be the equivalent of like that Diane Sawyer interview where she yells at Britney Spears for eroding American culture, when in fact, if you wanted to put blame on between the two of them of who
was eroding America,
who probably had more of a negative impact, it's somebody in like Diane Sawyer's position and not somebody in Britney Spears' position.
Or, as we've previously established, Fred Durst.
Yeah, right. Fred Durst, really the root of all evil in the 21st century.
Did Fred Durst create butt rock, though, is the real question.
I mean, I'm not a butt rock connoisseur. I mean, probably, like most people, would probably pin that on him.
Right.
But I'm sure that there are folks who are more historically informed on the origins of butt rock that could be like, well, actually, it was, it was Bebo Simmons who really pioneered the proto butt rock scene in Kansas City, Missouri in 1992.
Well, you're wrong right off the bat, because it definitely was somebody named Chad.
Well, no, Chad stole it from Bebo.
Oh, Chad culture appropriated it.
Yeah.
I love the butt rock would be something that I expect to come from VH1 in the next, decade. Does VH1 even still exist? I don't even know.
Who knows?
Who the hell knows? Jesus.
Just one more thing I wasn't allowed to watch when I was a kid.
Oh, we were allowed to watch VH1. MTV was the one where my parents were like, we need to be careful about you watching that show.
I wasn't allowed to watch anything. But that's okay.
It's all right.
That's okay. You still find a way to get a peek at the Fiona Apple video, one way or the other.
That was a life-changing moment for everyone in my generation. Fiona, I'm feeling like a criminal too, just watching this. Like, change the channel quickly as I hear someone coming upstairs.
I think there's like a story about Fiona Apple, before we move on, where like she was dating, I think, Paul Thomas Anderson at the time. And
wild pairing.
Was hanging out with Quentin Tarantino. And then after like spending like an hour with Quentin Tarantino, she stopped doing cocaine.
Would he keep wanting to look at her feet while they were together?
No,
just take your shoes
she
off.
Just found him incredibly annoying.
It's like, wait a minute. Is that what I'm like when I'm on this? We can't do this anymore. No, I won't subject anyone to this any further. Stop. So we do need to prioritize. We only have a couple of weeks left before things really start heating up. So we really should, you, me, and Kevin should prioritize what content we want to deliver to the people during the off season, because people do love our off season content. People do crave our off season content. Folks, I wish we could give you more off season content, but this team of ours that we have chosen to follow, it just keeps delivering the news, unfortunately. Or fortunately. I don't know. We are an FC Cincinnati podcast, allegedly. So where do you want to start? I guess the best place. Go for it. What do you think?
Here's something real quick. Something that we have been trying to follow. There hasn't been a lot of movement on it. Was the interest that FC Cincinnati had last year in young center back Malcolm Jeng.
Yes.
It was reported a couple of days ago by Tom Bogert that Malcolm Jeng is signing with Sorry, I didn't look up a pronunciation. Reams.
Reams.
Reams. I don't know.
Riames.
Just as a matter of principle, I don't learn how to pronounce words in French.
I appreciate you taking a firm stance on that.
Yep. And so that dream is dead, but dreams. But Tom Bogert did say he expects Cincinnati to remain in the market for a young CB.
I mean, that's the most obvious answer to their center back depth problems.
I made a joke about it that, they need a young CB because they just traded away a young CB. So what they need is like an Ian Murphy type.
We can only find someone like him.
But in reality, I do think that if they are going the U22 route, you get kind of a best of both worlds because you get to spend a little bit more money on a player who hopefully is no worse or maybe even better than Murphy right now, but is younger, upside, has more upside, and is under a controlled budget hit through the U22 initiative for the next, 3-4 years.
Right. I mean, when you think about it, Ian Murphy was, whenever you can hit on a super draft pick, that's
free money from the government.
Free money from the government. Yeah, no, that's playing the game on easy mode a little bit to a certain extent. And that's what they did with Ian Murphy is kind of what they would have done if Ian Murphy was a U22, where you would sign him, you would bring him in, he would give you good minutes. You would figure out at what point in his development he has sort of reached his apex. And, for better or worse, I think that we never really talked about the Ian Murphy trade in this context. But to me, I don't know if you disagree, I kind of feel like Ian Murphy plateaued this year to where I think that the player that you have right now with Ian Murphy, and, center backs and defenders, they do have they're like goalkeepers in this regard, where you can age into the position a little more gracefully at center back and on the back line than you can elsewhere on the pitch. You see center backs play a little later into their careers than elsewhere on the field. You see them play effectively later into their careers than other players on the outfield. But you do get the sense sort of that Ian Murphy is now a finished product at his position, or if there's more growth for Ian Murphy, you're talking about going from, if you're grading him on a 0 to 100 scale, you're talking about him going from like maybe a 75 to a 79, or maybe he hits 80. I'm not saying that's where I think I rate him at. I'm just saying that that's the range of growth that you probably can expect from Ian Murphy in his career from this point forward. That's about the right time if he were a U22 player that you'd be looking to sell him, where you think that we have developed him, we have gotten the most value out of him, we need to sell him, and then that's the money we invest back into the club, sign a replacement with part of that money, and then the cycle keeps perpetuating itself. I mean, all but the biggest clubs in Europe behave this way. There are very few clubs that don't use this model of selling younger talent to sort of keep the lights on in the building elsewhere. So in a way, yeah, do you want someone like Ian Murphy with your U22? Yeah, it's funny. But you do, because you get him earlier in the development cycle, and that's the person who provides the GAM in 4 years or 3 years that funds the next cycle of player acquisitions.
Yeah, my only disagreement with what you said is that I'm not sure Ian Murphy has like plateaued, but I do think he probably has plateaued in our system, and that he may fit better on a team that asks either as early depth off the bench,
right,
or from a team that doesn't ask quite so much from their center backs. Like if he has a stay at home left back next to him, for example, and he's not being asked to then kind of do the freelancing ahead that we ask our center backs to do, he may settle in very, very well with a number of MLS teams. But, if we're going to continue to have the left wing back moving forward, which we could talk about in a little bit, because it kind of came up at least tangentially this week. You feel better with a player like Hadebe and of that profile versus Murphy's profile, in my view.
I don't disagree with that. So I guess maybe the better way to phrase it is I don't expect him to jump a tier level in terms of like if you rank players in terms of tiers, I don't expect him to suddenly jump and become a prospect in Europe at any point in the near future or like a prospect to be sold abroad. I think that he sort of found his level and it was a good time to hit the reset button to a certain extent for all the reasons that you outlined and plus the fact that this team needs some GAM. So hopefully younger center back in. The only other thing that I found interesting about this news from overseas is that if you will recall, there was in Chris Albright's press conference, I believe it was his press conference at the end of the year, or in one of his media appearances that he's made, Chris Albright has said publicly that when FC Cincinnati gets a player into Cincinnati and has a player visit like the Kevin Denkey, who we'll talk about here in a second, when they get him to visit, they close the deal. And I think he said definitively, we have never had a player visit Cincinnati who we didn't close the deal on. Is this the first player who visited Cincinnati that Albright hasn't been able to close the deal on in terms of a big international signing? And I think U22s qualify as big international signings.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you mean by visit, because Matt Hedges visited, but it was the off season, so he didn't visit during a game.
We don't think Kai Wagner visited because we knew they were after him, but we don't think that he visited here other than playing here as a part of Philadelphia Union.
Right. I don't know that it's been reported that Jeng visited, but it has been
strongly insinuated, murmured,
rumbled that he visited. So yeah, I mean, maybe. I don't think that this is going to go on Chris Albright's official list.
We got some intel from people that we saw some graphics that were being displayed inside the stadium. That was some whispers and some rumors of like, welcome here. So yeah, I don't know if that's out there, but it's out there enough that I feel comfortable talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. We don't have him confirmed at a game.
So it has to be someone cheering. Like he has to see the crowd doing the sha-la-la-la-la.
To qualify for Albright's statement, it has to be somebody who attends the game in person.
I like this because we're going to be able to keep drilling this down and get more granular with it. Yep. Like, well, it has to be someone who attends the game.
It has to be a league game.
In a game where FC Cincinnati scores. Or it has to be now, it'll be in a game where FC Cincinnati scores and wins. And it has to be a game that's a league. Like we can get granular
Denkey
with this.
Didn't attend a game where we scored or won.
That is true.
And he still signed up.
We kicked some PKs. That counts.
That's true. Some of those did hit the net. Yeah.
Went in the net. Yeah. So I think that, but technically speaking, the ball crossed the threshold and into the back of the net several times. Let's go to that then. How about that? Kevin Denkey arrives at FC Cincinnati, welcomed by the supporters at CVG Airport. Heartwarming scene of him arriving here in the greater Cincinnati area, being greeted by the fans. When you saw this, Grayson, what was your first thought? Seeing our new great number 9 hope arriving to meet his supporters.
My first thought was he continues to do and present himself the right way, right?
Yeah.
Like he keeps
sure does.
He at the media day, he mentioned back to seeing the supporters, and he said, it was amazing for me to see 20,000 plus in the stadium. He said something along the lines of MLS being the second league behind the Premier League for fans.
That was a wild line.
Yeah, I don't know if that's. I don't know what that means, but he has used that line before in to go true sicko mode interviews that he's given to Belgian YouTubers explaining his move to the US.
Now, see, I like that because he's saying stuff when he doesn't think we're listening. I had this impression that he's really at the very least, he's savvy about saying the right things to the right camera. Saying that to people where it's like in a foreign language media, I like that.
Well, he said
That's
the same things to the Belgian media that he said at media day here, that when he was looking at his next move, first and foremost, he needed to go to a place where he thought he could score goals. And he says, I need service. I need to make sure that I'm going to a team that generates a lot of chances. And I need to keep growing in my career, being able to keep scoring. And, I guess you could cynically say, well, that's a comment on the
MLS
level.
MLS defenses.
But you also think about it like you don't want to lose momentum.
No.
As in your career, especially at age 24. And there was talk about him going to, at least according to this interview he gave to these Belgian guys, Nottingham Forest, and that, like, a move like that can go very poorly for you.
Sure can.
Because if you're in like the worst team in the Premier League, not like Nottingham Forest, they're not actually doing that poorly right now versus expectations, but if you go to a bad team in a top league, you might not get any chances to score. And so if you go through a whole year, you only score 1 or 2 goals, that could be a big setback.
Sure can. Sure can.
So,
gives the impression your career has flatlined or that you've reached a level that you can't compete at.
the other thing that I thought was interesting in the interview, not the media day interview, but in the interview to the Belgian guys, was him talking about the different European teams that were interested in him, and saying, a lot of those teams were, we really like you, we want to bring you in, but we have to move our striker. And it was a lot of contingencies on, well, we have to move this guy first. We have to move this guy first. And that made me think of the links to Lille, which were contingent on Jonathan David moving. And him saying a difference was Cincinnati was they were committing to him immediately. That we are going to, that you're going to be a big piece for our team. We're going to build a team around you, et cetera, et cetera.
He probably could do his homework a lot easier in Cincinnati and look at the team as it was constructed and see, there is a gaping hole where my game can fit in. And that's kind of probably an interesting perspective for an athlete, where you can look at the situation you're going into and quite literally on the field see where you would make the difference. Watching the film, watching the games, all it would take would be a couple of game films from especially the latter half of this year with FC Cincinnati, and just watching the runs that haven't been made, or the lack of production from the striker of whoever it was, or a couple of those misses late in the season from Joe Aquini or from Kevin Kelsey. And, you can quite literally see the spot on the field that you need to be in, or that you could actually get into, and the service that wasn't played properly, or the move that wasn't made that would have opened up the potential service to the striker. And yeah, it's the whole thing. Can you see yourself in this job? Well, in FC Cincinnati's case, yes, I can absolutely see myself in this job, because I'm not there on the field and I see what the results are for this team. My next question with Denkey, was he created in a lab to say the right thing at all times? Because it feels like every time he opens his mouth to say something, he's perfect at this. He is perfect at this. He comes off as an incredibly humble individual, hungry for success, but glazing the supporters at every chance you can get, glazing the league, the city, the team. This man is a PR, the opposite of a PR nightmare. This man is a walking PR home run. I love this. I'm just curious where this comes from, because there aren't a lot of athletes that are this good, especially in a foreign language with a foreign background, not having been to this country, of just immediately like gets it, capital G, capital I.
but by all accounts, and this
it seems genuine too.
Right. This goes back to the articles that we saw out of Belgium when the signing was announced, that they described him as somebody who always did things the right way, as the 70-something-year-old team admin who had to drive him to and from training when he didn't have a car and a license and he first came over. Talked about him always being on time, that he kept his place neat. His neighbors all liked him. They never had any problems with him. He got a home gym and I think steam room and stuff, put into his house so that he could, do a lot of extra work on his own. It actually kind of reminded me of Obi asking Albright if he was allowed to use the gym on his own, or if there would be a place for him to work out when, but you get a guy who by all accounts takes his career and his image really seriously and just wants to make sure that he's getting the most that he can out of his talents. And add into that, making sure he went to a good situation where he would be the main guy right away, recognizing the importance of not just going to a bigger league, but making sure you're in a situation where you can be expected, if you do what you need to do, to continue to grow and succeed. Right. I mean,
right.
This is not, we got a guy who was in a tough situation, but he's ready to turn it around or whatever. This is a guy who was doing really well and hopefully could just keep linearly progressing up and forward.
Right. Yeah. No character concerns, no work ethic concerns, no production concerns. Just you're getting him as he is moving forward in his career. Love that. I think it was reported as well, and I love this too, is that the aforementioned home gym, apparently he asked the club, or somebody reported, I think he asked the club, well, how am I going to ship all my fitness equipment over? And the response was, don't worry about that. We will be able to get you an all new home gym wherever you decide you want to live in the greater Cincinnati area. And that was oh, okay, we're very good about that. The video out of the airport was heartwarming. Quotes were incredible. Here we go. The first quote that I loved here. Honestly, this makes me emotional. This is from Carter Chapley's great story on FCCincinnati.com. Go over there, read this if you haven't already. And if you haven't, I don't know what you're doing, because this is the kind of stuff that, this is what gives me life during the off season. This is our new big signing, just being an all around cool ass dude. Honestly, this makes me emotional. Denkey told FCCincinnati.com after seeing the welcoming committee, I have never had people come to welcome me like this. Maybe after a big match, the Europa Conference League or something like that, but never like this. It was overwhelming to see. Grayson, where do you stand on airport welcomes or welcoming new player signings like this at the airport? I think this is phenomenally cool. I am incredibly appreciative to everyone that had the time and made the decision to go out to the airport and welcome him like this. Seems like he was very genuinely appreciative of it.
Yeah, I'm pro. I think that they need, not need, but I think it's a nice thing. I think it's good when the club can arrange, letting it be known the time these guys are coming in. I think I know there were some concerns that if it wasn't big enough or whatever, it would look a little embarrassing, but you can't really worry about that. I mean, no. This entire endeavor is embarrassing.
Yes, it's a profoundly embarrassing thing we do.
Everything that just the whole thing is embarrassing, but that's fine because people genuinely enjoy it. And that's what we should, focus more on. And I think welcoming a player and showing them that, we're really excited to see him and letting him get to meet some of the supporters and making him feel welcome right away is a good thing to do.
Yeah. And I want everyone to look at the photo, because the next time we make a big signing, I want to see double as many people there, because that's pretty cool.
Yep.
The other part about this I like too is I think it's especially important to welcome players and new signings at the airport like this, because I don't know, Grayson, you fly frequently. I fly semi-frequently. If you haven't flown into CVG in a while, when you arrive past, we'll say 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, CVG is kind of a ghost town. And it's funny how you fly into other cities, and CVG has to be, for a major American city, one of the deadest airports past 8 p.m. that I think I've ever been to. You go to other cities, you fly into other places. The airports, there's always things going on at the airport later into the evening with departures, with arrivals. I think the last departure at CVG is something close to like 9 o'clock p.m. The Sky Club shuts down right about there. All the restaurants shut down. All the shops shut down. If you've ever been stuck there waiting on a delay, the airport is not an exciting place to be. So I can only imagine someone who is coming in their first impression of flying into Cincinnati in that moment, like, oh my God. And Denkey's been here. He went to the game. They recruited him. I get that. But that there's a difference between coming someplace on a visit and coming someplace where this is my home now. This is where I live. And if you're first getting off the plane and it's like, we're really doing this, is a shuttered Bruegger's Bagels and, an I Heart Cincinnati gift shop that's closed. And maybe if you're lucky, is the Bengals restaurant that has been under construction forever in Terminal B. It is nice that there is at least some life that you see before you get to the car and start driving into the city. That's more common on the airport than it is anything else. But I think that's a good thing, given what the airport's like late at night.
I have a question though about this, because we know, they didn't come back on the PJ. He
did not come back on the PJ
on a commercial flight from Miami. Noonan and Miazga were both also down in Miami for MLS Media Day. Were they on the same flight and they just slipped by unnoticed?
That would be hysterical. Can you imagine if everyone is so laser focused for Kevin Denkey? Like they've looked his picture up. They're like, okay, we're looking for a person this size that looks this way. He's going to be wearing probably some team gear, and like quietly with some Beats audio headphones and a hoodie up, Matt Miazga just like blows right by and goes to baggage claim.
I mean, I'm going to assume that they weren't on the same flight. I think there was a coaches convention as well, so that maybe Noonan was attending that. But until I hear otherwise, I'm going to assume that Miazga came by just totally unnoticed while all the fans are greeting Denkey.
This does bring to mind, we heard this week that Roman Celentano is joining the head coaching staff at St. Louis or at Philadelphia with Bradley Carnell taking over.
Roman Celentano.
Not Roman Celentano. Mitch Hedberg. Mitch Hedberg.
Mitch Hedberg.
Mitch Hildebrand. Jesus Christ.
Mitch Hedberg.
Mitch Hedberg. That would be a wild story if Mitch Hedberg had joined the Mitch altogether. I'm not a morning person. Sorry. Mitch Hildebrand joined the coaching staff at Philadelphia with Bradley.
Union. Yep.
Philadelphia Union with Bradley Carnell. Ever since that interview we did with him, I have been desperately afraid of Mitch slipping into an FC Cincinnati game and not being recognized. And then the next time we talked to him saying, yeah, I went to an FC Cincinnati game. Nobody knew who I was. Like my head is on a swivel looking for Mitch. It would be a very similar situation here with Matt Miazga of, boy, that would be embarrassing if it turned out that all the supporters were just like, we don't care. We're not even looking for you right here.
Yep.
Don't love that. I assume Matt stayed down in Florida for an extra couple of days because Matt, having lived in Cincinnati for a number of years now, knows there is no point in rushing back to Cincinnati in the middle of January if you don't have to be in Cincinnati in the middle of January. If you can choose to be somewhere else in the middle of January, no slight on the city, please, by all means, avail yourself of your choice to be somewhere else. He was down there at Media Day with Kevin Denkey, with Pat Noonan. Anything about Media Day that sticks out to you? Anything about this that you found interesting? For being a Media Day, it was rather limited in terms of what was being offered. I get that it's a league-wide Media Day, but For a league that's desperate for more people to pay attention to it, you would think that there would be just more on offer for media day than was there. Anything about this?
Yeah, so I watched or listened to the Noonan and Denkey availabilities. I put some highlights on Twitter and Blue Sky.
There you go. Welcome back to X, the everything app.
Yeah, we'll see how long this lasts. But from Noonan's, just a couple of things that I want to acknowledge. One is he said they're looking at center back options, left wing back, and attacker, whether a attacking midfield or a number 9 type player. So, if you were interested in what their transfer strategy was this window, there's a little bit of insight there. And then he also talked about a calendar change in 2 aspects. As people may remember, there's rumors of MLS moving to a fall to spring calendar that more aligns with what they play in most of the top European leagues.
Right.
And Noonan mentioned 2 things about it that both indicate to me. One of them has been a frequent talking point since the summer window across MLS. And that is that this would allow them to align their primary and secondary transfer windows with how those are done in Europe. And Noonan said that, not having the transfer window aligned makes it more challenging and expensive to sign players, because either it's not the time when most players are available, so you have to overpay for them, or you have to, in the winter, wait for the European window to close and see who's not signed, or in the summer, overpay to get somebody to make a move now versus when most of the European teams are going to be doing business or getting someone to make a move now because the European window, I think in the summer, stays open longer.
Yeah, there was a problem that they had with the Josh Sargent situation last year, where teams can wait for a better bid as the window draws to a close, versus MLS teams have to submit their best and final by August 31st or whatever the date is that the window closes.
Like 14th
or August 14th, whatever the date is. You have to submit your best and final before the European window is closed, and a team can say, nah, we're going to wait and see if we get a better bid out there because there's still more time. So your only option is to make some sort of a ridiculous offer that is such a gross overpay that it convinces a European team, no, we're going to sell now and we're not going to wait and field more offers as teams get desperate.
Right. And then, so that's been a recurring talking point for the last 6-7 months. So
it's been heating up recently, though.
Sure.
Right. And that stands to reason as the league sort of levels up at the type of player that they're targeting. But also, it's hard not to notice that whenever you hear people talking about a proposed solution that no one was asking for, usually the discussion of a problem becomes a little bit louder. And there was a amplified discussion of this problem, not just in Cincinnati. We heard a lot about it because of the failed summer transfer window here, but it's a conversation that has been getting louder within the league in a lot of different places. And in league media, it's been getting louder.
It's somebody I think Tom Bogert has found ways to mention it in a lot of his articles. I'm sure others have. I don't necessarily read everybody all the time. So, right. but just from what I have heard, it does seem to be something that the league wants to message out. The other point that Noonan mentioned that I hadn't heard before, from anybody league associated, is that FC Cincinnati likes to play a pressing style, and that in the summer months it is difficult to maintain the high intensity when you play that aggressive pressing style, and that a schedule change would allow them to keep intensity up throughout the year. And Nate Gilman on Blue Sky actually had an article. I don't remember the date, but I think it predates this. Looking at pressing stats throughout the MLS season, and the conclusion was that there is a lot less pressing in the summer than in the not quite as hot months.
Yeah. And you see that, like there's definitely a stylistic shift in MLS games over the course of the summer as they get hotter. Like the pressing is always it's waves. You'll see this in even the top leagues that play the winter schedule, where you'll have a team that presses and then they lay back, they press and they lay back and they rest for a little bit. The rest periods get significantly longer in MLS in the summer, and part of that's due to talent. But yeah, I would see the argument for the schedule being that way as well. I guess my only counter to that is that every good team in MLS presses. So if you move to a winter schedule, it'll just be you'll press more, so will everyone you're playing. It's not like there's a competitive advantage one way or the other based on, it will not be better for FC Cincinnati to play in colder weather. It will just mean the teams we're playing will do the exact same thing back to us, because the most successful teams in MLS all employ a very, very high press in this league.
Many of them do, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Kevin Denkey was at Media Day as well. It was his first opportunity to talk to the media since signing, or at least the local media since signing. Many of the same sentiments that he has already expressed at other various interviews. We've touched on him a lot here before. Anything else interesting that jumped out to you with Kevin Denkey's press availability?
No, I think we hit the main points. Like he's on message all the time.
On message, just relentlessly on message. This man has a future in politics in any number of places if he wants to get into it, with his ability to say the right thing at all times. Matt Miazga also attending MLS Media Day. Not a lot of newsworthiness out of Matt Miazga. Matt Miazga made his appearance, I'll say, for him.
I missed that one because it wasn't announced that he was going to be there. He came in as part of the onside kind of Drive to Survive kind of series that they're. I think it's from the producers of Drive to Survive. It's going to be on Apple TV,
which means no one will watch it.
Apparently, Matt Miazga is going to be a featured storyline. And the comment I did hear him say about it was that the cameras did a nice job of kind of keeping themselves inconspicuous and not really getting in the way. But I don't know if it's a storyline that I'm sure this was explained as in that, but I just didn't watch that part of the media availability. I don't know if it's storylines from last season or if the storyline is going to be him, rehabbing and getting healthy and then reintegrating back into the team this season. I have no idea.
I don't know that I'm ready to watch a tell-all documentary about losing Matt Miazga last year, considering how badly it screwed the season up. I don't know that I'm ready to go back to that point.
I don't want to watch 2024 storylines, to be honest.
Do you remember that moment where they told us, "Oh, it's just a deep laceration"?
It's 2024 season, so
there was still hope. There was still hope that Matt Miazga would make a triumphant return to the field at some point during the 2024 season. And then we were quickly disabused of that notion.
Yeah. So
good times.
That show premieres Friday, February 21st. If people want to watch it, again, it does appear to be about the 2024 season, which means I will not be watching it.
No. There's also way better choices on Apple TV if you're looking to watch something that isn't an actual game.
Severance will be back.
Yeah, Severance will be back. Last season of Silo, or second season of Silo, is really picking up right now. It was a little slow to start, but last few episodes have been absolutely fire. Steve Zahn is incredible in this show, the second season. I'm told For All Mankind is good. Kevin's a big enthusiast on that. I loved Foundation as well. That was really, really good on Apple TV. The king of streaming television that doesn't make any effort whatsoever to get you to watch. So I'm sure this will be a similar thing from the MLS product right here. It will be critically lauded, and everyone will say, "Oh, that's a thing."
Yeah, don't they have a show with like Harrison Ford?
Yeah, Shrinking. Mrs. Chief
crazy.
Loves it.
It's crazy. They have
it's incredible.
The biggest stars, and you have not seen any promos for any of these shows. You have not heard of any of these shows.
No, Harrison Ford doesn't do television. They got Harrison Ford to do a television.
1923.
Well, yeah,
It's
but
part of the Yellowstone universe.
Yeah. But Harrison Ford's making some interesting late career decisions. Doing the show for Apple,
Doing Marvel stuff now.
The every preview for that Marvel movie makes me less want to see it. It just looks putrid. I don't understand.
I'll be honest, I'm not sure I've seen a trailer for it.
It's bad. No, what it looks like, okay, they've got like those programs now that are like the AI video generation. We have reached the point with Marvel movies where it genuinely looks like, an AI generator. Write a Marvel movie, except Hulk is red this time. It's like, okay. It's like, here he is. He's punching something real hard. He punches someone real hard, and somehow they don't break every bone in their body when they crash into a car that they break in half. I'm over it.
My understanding is with those movies, they work the VFX team so hard that they actually have to do the CGI for the fights like way before the script or the movie is like done.
Right.
So I think that the fight at the end of Black Panther down on the train.
Yeah.
That was just done, and then they just like shoehorned it into the movie.
They made a movie about the fight scene.
So that's why they're often, very like generic and boring, but they pump these movies out so quickly.
Yeah,
I could be wrong, but
no, they do that. And the other thing too is they cut every corner so that now when you watch these, it's funny how there's the meme out there. Oh, why has technology gone backwards? Technology hasn't gone backwards. It's just they're not giving people as much time as they need to make this look good. It's why you go back and you watch like one of the old Pirates of the Caribbean movies and the CGI looks so much. There was more effort put into it and more time put into it than these shops now where every movie has a billion VFX effects and they're running these people 48 hours in a 24-hour day. And it's like, does this look like it's PS4 level? It's good enough. No one's going to be able to tell until it gets to Blu-ray. And by that point, we've already gotten paid.
Well, they did that new Alien movie. The director came out and said that for home release, they fixed some of the CGI to make it better because he said it wasn't good enough by the time they had to have it out in the theater. It's like, man, I wouldn't admit that.
Yeah, that's one of those things Batman couldn't beat out of me right there. Like there is no way, no way that I would ever. It's funny too, though, that they used to call that ship in the print wet, that it was fresh out, that they hadn't had any, they had finished it a day before it got shipped out, the actual film itself. But I guess that it makes a certain amount of sense in that if you do that in the theater, there isn't going to be some dipshit on Reddit that's screen capping every scene to be like, look, you can still see where this has happened or this has happened. But at least if you fix it for the streaming release of the Blu-ray, you'll avoid some of that stuff, because that absolutely does happen. There's entire subreddits of people that just look for the coffee cup in the Game of Thrones. Where to next? Okay, how about this?
Signing.
New rumored signings. How about this? Once again, our humble little dipshit organization, the Post Cincy, we are breaking news. The Post Joseph Mame reporting this week that FC Cincinnati is expected to be signing free agent Tah Brian Anunga. Did I get that right? Anunga?
I honestly don't know. I'm sorry. I would say Anunga, but
Anunga?
Could be Anunga. I don't know.
He is a 28-year-old defensive mid from Cameroon, most recently with Nashville SC, where he's been for the past 4 years. Last year in the 2024 season, logged just shy of 1,500 minutes in the midfield. I think he was on about $400,000 or a little under $400,000 in wage bill from last year. We've been asking for depth in the midfield. We've been screaming, shouting, demanding depth in the midfield. This is what that kind of signing would look like, I think. Am I wrong in that?
No, you're not wrong in that. I mean, you said he played nearly 1,500 minutes last year in MLS. He started 17 games for Nashville. They obviously weren't very good
No.
But we're not asking him to start 17 games for us, hopefully, or even play 1,500 minutes for us. We're asking for him to give us some decent minutes to back up our midfielders, I assume, if we sign him, right? And so he's by his stats, he's a unspectacular player, but he's good at some of the things that I think he's going to be asked to do. Among midfielders on FB Ref, he is in the 79th percentile for pass completion percentage. Doesn't play a lot of progressive passes, so this is probably somebody making more of that OB type pass. Just like dumping it off to
a destroyer who changes possession, stops an attack, and then immediately just distributes to someone else who's better with the ball.
Yep. He was 77th percentile in successful take-ons per 90, 78th percentile in tackles per 90, 93rd percentile in interceptions per 90, 70th percentile in blocks per 90. I mean, this is somebody who I think you bring in to help see out a game.
Yeah.
And he should be pretty good at doing that.
Yeah.
I assume the salary number is going to be below the 295 because Nashville had an option on him, I believe, and they declined it. And so that's how he became a free agent. I expect the salary is going to be below what he was at Nashville. And assuming that's true, I think it's hard to find fault with this signing if it happens, because we've been clamoring for midfield depth. This is midfield depth, somebody who has several years of experience in MLS, who's got Champions League experience, playoff experience, et cetera, et cetera. And he also played against FC Cincinnati in USL.
Yeah. Way back. I think he became part of the Nashville organization when they made the jump from USL to MLS.
Yep.
This is a major position of need that I think has been going untalked about. The person we always talked about last year needing a break was Pavel Buka. Wobodo is not getting any younger. He's not going to be a DP this year, but he's still on a pretty significant salary number. And I think that the effectiveness of Wobodo is going to increase if they can spell him a little bit more and keep some mileage off the tires with him.
Yep.
So this is a guy where if this signing ends up coming to fruition, this is a guy where, like you said, you can get 15, 20 minutes out of him at the end of a match to see a match out. This is the guy where you're up 2-0 and you can pull Wobodo out and give his legs a little bit of a rest while not having a huge defensive drop off and conceding and letting a team back into a game. The other thing about it is that we've seen before in the past, Wobodo picks up cards. He is, I think, officiated differently than a lot of other players are in this league, and he gets a lot of BS yellows and misses matches on yellow card accumulation. And now your first choice is not Yuya Kubo in this position or Malik Pinto in this position. It's now someone that has logged a significant number of minutes in the defensive midfield in MLS. And that's a good thing, that this is someone that you can turn to in situations like that. But the most important thing is that there is a whole list of players on this FCC team that what keeping them fresh or keeping them effective looks like is just having someone that can come in for those last 10 to 15 minutes and play competent soccer in order to stop them from having to run 90, and using that last 10% of reserve to get through the final bit of the game and then being completely wiped versus coming out of a game thinking, yeah, I had a good workout today. I had a good workload today, but I'm not exhausted going into the next day. And it makes recovery easier the next day. It makes getting ready to play the next match easier for the next match coming up. So,
and recall Nashville, typically a pretty good defensive team.
Yeah.
And this is a guy who played a significant role for them in more of a defensive capacity. So yeah, I mean, it's somebody who you can spell Obi with and still feel like you've got strong personnel on the field.
I didn't look. I probably should have before we started talking about him. Is he an international? Will he require it?
He's a U.S. citizen.
There we go. Even better.
He got it when he was at Nashville.
because he's been here for a while. I assumed he had a green card at this point if he'd been in MLS for this long and been in USL before that. That's good. Keep those international spots handy in order to sell them for future GAM conversion.
In 2023, he became a U.S. citizen.
Will we get a signing or will we get the unnamed trialist in Milford?
I think he's announced as a signing.
Yeah.
MLS free agent. There's no, you're not waiting on any visas or anything.
That is true.
To sneak him in. So just bring him in, announce it. Let's go.
Let's roll. Speaking of announce it and let's roll. We talked about it in the last episode, but I think it's worth noting here. The Barreal to Santos rumors have, I would say, moved from the, we're seeing terrorist chatter to actually raising the threat level on the Homeland Security website, being reported now by actual media outlets and actual reporters and actual verifiable sources down in South America. The move, in case you forgot or you haven't been keeping up with this, still is being couched as a loan with an option to buy for Alvaro, even though, as best I can tell, there still is 1 year left on his deal and would be nothing left to buy at the conclusion of a loan. I don't know what the hell's going on with this, but enough people keep repeating it to the point where I feel like I'm being gaslit into believing that this actually may in fact be the case, that it's just going to be a loan. It could in fact be that they're just looking to loan to get the salary number off the books. I don't know, but this is starting to feel a little inevitable-ish, or there's enough smoke to make me believe the fire is actually burning somewhere.
Yeah, CL Merlot reported it, and he's pretty reliable when it comes to South American transfers. So that tells you that there is something to it, and this is a quote unquote real move, regardless of whether it happens or not, or happens in this form. This is real information being reported. This is not a random account. So there's a whole bunch of different ways you could imagine a loan with a purchase could be structured, like the purchase being triggered in the summer, or it's contingent where they owe us money if they sign him to another deal at the end. But it also doesn't feel like the type of thing where you would get a big enough transfer fee to hit that, $3 million of GAM conversion that you want, right? Like, this is, even if you do end up getting a transfer fee out of Santos, it's not going to be big money, I think, but there's still value in it if, you get his salary off your budget, presumably. And then if there's a loan fee on top of it, that could be GAM. That could be converted to GAM this year. So it's not as much money as you wanted to work with, assuming that you were able to sell him for what you thought you could sell him for. But it helps. Yeah. And then it still is strange to me that there has not been a market for this guy for a transfer for the last year and a half. Given some of the transfers we're seeing down to South America for what I think players who are no better in MLS than Barreal was, but I don't know. You never. I guess you can't know. Maybe the surgery is playing into it. Maybe it's his contract situation that teams just know that he's available at the end of the year.
Yeah, there's that. I mean, it's also too. We've talked about it before. The best film he's put out has been as a wingback, And there's just if your system doesn't employ wingbacks, if you're looking for something different than that, I don't know that he excites you quite as much. That's his main value is basically in this system that we have created. And it's a weird thing trying to find a good match of other people that are looking for that skill set. I think far and away, would you agree with me on this? Far and away, the least likely thing out there that I've seen talked about is that we've somehow signed him to an extra option year, or that we've gotten him to agree to an extension to be sold. I can't imagine
why he would do that. Yeah,
I can't
just
imagine
to do us a favor, like
that he loves us so much. Yeah,
right? No. I mean, if you're him, if you're him, you're out for free at the end of the year, right? And so unless that extension gets you a dream move immediately, you don't sign it. I mean, you don't care if the team gets any money.
No.
So just go on loan to Santos. And if that doesn't work out, you can sign anywhere you want in the world at no transfer fee.
It's interesting. Do you think there's a reality where there's a mutual term? I can't imagine why he would agree to that.
No,
but because he's making too much money. I don't know. Because you could do that, or you could. There's a lot of different things going on with this. None of it makes sense. I'm sure it will all be explained to us at a certain point. Hopefully soon, because it would be nice to start getting some clarity on a lot of this stuff. Allegedly, Lucho Acosta will report to FC Cincinnati, or is expected to report to FC Cincinnati this week. I think
people are reading a lot into Noonan's comments. Noonan's not going to say, I think he's going to hold out. I think they asked him about it at the media day, and he said, we're supporting Lucho and we look forward to having him in when players report.
Yeah. But I mean, what I mean by that is that it will be interesting to see if Lucho shows up.
Right.
That's just one of the many things that needs some clarity before this team gets much further into the offseason. But the good news is the window remains open. The window remains open for business. The international window remains open through the end of the month. The MLS primary transfer window remains open for months,
like
afterward.
April or something.
Yeah,
I forget.
There's an inordinate amount of time to make player signings. I think that does it for FC Cincinnati. Did we miss on anything, Grayson?
I mean, people ask about Lucho's status every day. It's still no change.
TBD. Yeah. No change. There's a rumor. There's always a rumor every day about it that you can find.
There's rumors out there that he's reached personal terms with Corinthians, but also that another team in Brazil has offered FC Cincinnati $3 or $4 million, and that Boca has not reached out to him at all. This all still feels, based on the nature of what is being reported and also who's reporting it, it all still feels like agents trying to get business done.
Yeah. It feels agenty. I think what it does tell you is that he still very much is evaluating options or looking for options elsewhere outside of Cincinnati. And I think that the longer this goes on without him, when these rumors start to die and when he shows up in Cincinnati, you can maybe start to have some thoughts that he's coming back. But as of right now, as long as he's being actively shopped and you see this agent stuff, I think that the direction of this conversation seems to be very clear.
Yeah, if he's going, I want it to happen basically now.
Yeah, I want it to happen now. All righty. Well, with that, we'll jump on over to part 2. We'll talk about a little bit of business around MLS, and then we'll finish up with some Patreon questions. So stay tuned. Grayson, breaking news. We're dropping this into the middle of the episode right here. This happened quite literally the second we clicked end recording, but it feels newsworthy enough that we need to start talking about this. Tell me more. What are you seeing online? What is the breaking news?
Well, Cesar Luis Merlo, who is a pretty reputable journalist out of South America, who, depending on where you've dropped this in, we may have already mentioned him and mentioned that he's pretty reliable as far as it goes, is reporting that Cruz Azul in Mexico is going for Luca Orellano and has already made a formal offer for the winger.
Wow. Boy, this is a curveball right here that I did not see coming. Cruz Azul, to refresh recollections for the people out there, they are one of the big clubs in Mexico. I would say they're one of the top 4 or 5 clubs in Mexico.
They're a big team. La Máquina. Yeah.
La Máquina. Yeah. Fantastic cheerleading squad, worth a follow on Instagram as well. We talked about them in our Better Know a Liga MX preview a couple years ago. This might complicate the roster build this year a little bit, because this is one of those teams where if Cruz Azul is putting an offer in for one of your players, this is not a team that's offering nickel and dimes for players. This is a team that offers actual money for players. What's your initial reaction to this? Because this is quite literally your initial reaction, because we just read this a second ago.
My initial reaction is one, it does now raise the possibility of getting some of that GAM that they so desperately need.
But they need that GAM to pay down Orellano's purchase.
To pay it down his purchase or to pay for other players. It almost takes less pressure off of getting that Lucho move done immediately. Not because I think necessarily it means Lucho is more likely to come back, but also like if you're in the situation where you have to replace Orellano and Lucho, you're just kind of like, well, we just need to take our time this window.
Right.
That the beginning of the year is just going to be how it is, and we need to figure out what's going on. As far as Cruz Azul's business, I just pulled it up. They most recently paid like $10 million for Georgios Giacomakis from Atlanta. So again, like as Chief said, you're talking about a team that does pay real money for players. It's interesting. This just literally happened, and we have not been able to look at how it impacts the roster or whatever. But Orellano was a player I think that the team intended to rely on this year.
Yeah,
certainly was a player that I thought was going to be very important this year, and still think is going to be very important this year. But if somebody comes along and says $10, $11 million for him,
even like 8,
like
7 or 8,
they paid 2.6, 2.8 for him.
Yeah, that's incredible business right there. That's a major profit. So the reset on this is that Luca Orellano
pays for your U22s, maybe.
Pays for way more than it'll pay for your U22s, theoretically. Luca Orellano comes to FC Cincinnati last year on a loan. They completed the purchase option for him last year, $2.8 million, like Grayson said. He is on a 1+ options contract with the FC. He is a TAM player right now, based on buying the transfer fee down completely with GAM, which they would have the ability to do, or he would have to be made a designated player this year if they can't find a way to buy that TAM down, because on a 1-year deal, they cannot amortize that transfer fee over multiple seasons. Now, there have been rumors that they are looking to work out a longer-term deal with Orellano that would allow them to spread the hit from his transfer fee over multiple years, or potentially bifurcate it into different segments depending on how their cap is structured, where they pay a little bit this year, a lot more next year, a little bit less, whatever the third year of the deal would be theoretically. So why I say that is that this is a player who they were counting on, who is not a DP to provide DP value, but could have ended up being a DP this year. Here was my first reaction as soon as this news broke. Does this right here change the math on Barreal a little bit? If you're selling Orellano for this kind of money,
I think it changes the math, but I doubt it changes the situation. Like,
Maybe.
It does make it seem like, well, if you're getting Orellano's salary off the books, right?
Yeah.
And getting the GAM from his sale.
Yep.
It doesn't seem like anymore that there should be a budget issue for keeping Barreal on the team. And there's not necessarily a roster mismatch either, right? Because you have a couple of places that you could easily slot him in to the starting 11.
Yeah.
I still think that there's probably a relationship issue.
Could be a relationship issue, but like we talked about earlier, he's on what, $900,000, and we were talking about earlier in the episode how it's unlikely he signed an extension.
Right.
Does this open the possibility of potentially going to Barreal and saying, do you want to sign an extension here, and we bump your salary up to like 1.1, 1.2 with some of that money? I don't know if you want to do that for a guy coming off a pretty injury riddled season, but maybe I don't know.
But
like this,
I wouldn't offer him like a DP deal or anything.
I wouldn't offer him a DP deal either, but you can go with what they were planning to pay Orellano this year and what his budget hit was going to be anyway.
Yep.
Less so much what they were going to pay him, because I think the number Orellano was on was going to be around what Barreal was, like in the 900,000, 800,000 range, I think is what we thought.
Yeah, that's what I assume, yeah.
But his budget hit was going to be max TAM. So anything that you do that is short of that $1.7 million threshold, I mean, that's still saving money, and you're getting GAM conversion back on a sale if the fee is anything north of $3 million or, $4 million or so here. This, the other thing that was my first reaction here is that this very much resets expectations for this year, because this now they have potential for Lucho departing. We don't know what that is, but this was a major piece that they brought in last year that was severely undervalued for the production that he played. Yep. Like you were getting excess production beyond the TAM level from Luca Orellano. He was an MLS Best 11 candidate last year, not as a designated player. It's very much similar to the Brandon Vasquez situation, where replacing this player will be incredibly difficult because it's just hard to find this kind of talent at this kind of salary number. And I don't know. He was a guy that I was penciling in as someone who was going to bang in a bunch of goals and help Kevin Denkey, get service, get space. Yeah. This is leveling up the difficulty task for Albright this year if he has to replace Orellano as well.
I think yes, because it's hard to replace this player. But I was of the opinion that the roster needed significant work to be where we want it to be in 2025.
Right.
But all the reporting was that they didn't have any budget space or GAM or mechanisms to get any of that work done. Moving on from Orellano, and I'm not saying they are, but since it's from a reputable source, I think we have to at least acknowledge the possibility that it's something they might do. It's a setback in terms of what your current personnel looks like, but it takes, one, his salary off the books, and two, more importantly, gets you a massive GAM infusion that you then can use to make significant kind of moves, with the hope that now you have the flexibility to do the things that you really do need to do to get the team to a certain point.
You know what this does? What this does is, so we went into this season with the thought that this team needed to be on the 2DP for U22 model to get the $2 million of GAM that's flexible. By removing the need for the GAM infusion to pay his transfer fee, and not only removing that need, but also adding $3 million in GAM on top of that, this would free the club this year to go the 3DP model if they wanted to with all of this extra money.
And I don't think that they ever intended to have 4 U22s.
No, there was no chance that they just needed the money. They needed the GAM that you would get from that.
So yeah, I mean that would be tremendous.
And
because you really could improve on Orellano if you had unlimited money to do it, or uncapped money.
Right.
Not unlimited.
So what you could do right now with this is that, look, we're on this impression thinking that like the Lucho saga is a will he, won't he? What are we doing with this? We can't sign another DP till we lose Lucho. We can't loan Lucho because, that's a problem because, that's going to screw the DP math up at some point. What this would free them to do with this extra, if the offer comes in, and I'm assuming that the only way you're considering selling Luca Orellano is if the offer is significant enough to net him a profit. Like they're not going to turn around and sell Luca for less than they just paid for him. And if they're getting an offer, I'm assuming it's sufficient that they're going to get a full GAM transfusion conversion out of this. You can just go, and as soon as the ink is dry on the sale, you can go and immediately just buy a designated player as the replacement and not worry about, if Lucho comes back, we're going to be screwed financially because you got all the money that you would get by going the 2 DP route from this sale anyway. So I guess that I'm not as worried about finding a replacement now for that because you're not looking to try and replicate his budget charge. The budget charge for replacing him could theoretically be unlimited in this sense.
Right.
But it's another player to find in January. I don't know. The timing of this is remarkable, but we are in the middle of the window, and this wouldn't be the first player that's being bought. I mean, we'll talk about it in segment 2 with the Boca Juniors sale. They're buying players out of FC Dallas. The MLS is becoming a league that the other leagues go shopping in now. It's a good sign for the league.
My closing thought on it is just, they talk about being an ambitious team. Ambitious team is not just signing one player for a ton of money in a window. It involves taking advantage of opportunities to sell good players at a profit so that you can then make the next moves, right?
Yeah.
And so if this does happen, this is part of being an ambitious team, and you would just hope to see them capitalize on that ambition with what they do after.
Yeah. Yeah, it's churn. It's that you make this move and the next move is better and the next move is better and the next move is better until the club is, renowned or is, among the top spenders on the continent, and you can take your place in the pantheon of we are a big club in MLS. So as we sit here right now, having just read it, where do you think this is going?
I think he stays.
I don't know.
I mean,
this is
so I'll be honest. Like my knee jerk is that he goes, right?
Yeah.
But given that it's so new and that there's no details attached to it, I think you have to rationally say that this is closer to not happening than happening based on what's reported.
I guess my only concern, or where I immediately, when you said that, it was like, oh shit, is that he just signed. So that valuation in this case, it would be tough to submit an offer for a player like Orellano and not have, I don't want to say overbid, but have made a very significant overture because he quite literally just signed a transfer a month ago. I would be surprised if this wasn't a big number that they were offering for him.
I would think it would have to be, unless there's an underhanded idea, well, we're going to unsettle his situation.
Right. Because he's only on a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hope not.
I hope not.
All right. Well, I'm glad this broke when we had a chance to record this. This will be fun to edit in. So we'll drop this in the middle and we'll get back to the episode now. Grayson, we're back. Still no Kevin. I don't know where Kevin's at. I think Kevin is in an undisclosed location away. We don't give Kevin the time off as much. He's the person that edits the podcast. He's sort of the brains of the outfit. So whatever you're doing, Kevin, we're thinking about you. We miss you. Do you miss Kevin?
Always.
Yeah.
Every time Kevin. I don't see him.
Every time I don't see him. I always like to think about the disappointment of the person who throws the podcast on and hears me doing the cold open. And it's like, oh God, it's one of those episodes. I wouldn't listen to it either. Segment 2, we've got some news from around the league. Where do you want to start with this? Because the league is slowly starting to spin up. I think it was rather rude. Let's start with this. It didn't take long. The league record of the Kevin Denkey signing didn't even last to the start of the MLS season, based on what we're seeing right now. What's going on out there?
Yeah, so Tom Bogert reported that Atlanta has offered north of $18 million for Emmanuel Latte-Lath from Middlesbrough. That deal is not done, but I would say just based on that reporting, based on the offer, based on the fact that Bogert has also linked Atlanta to another striker, I think Atlanta is signaling their intention to break the Kevin Denkey record, to which I say, please.
And then we can break the Atlanta record when we sign the Lucho replacement. This is how this works. It's once somebody breaks the Denkey barrier, all of a sudden it revolutionizes international travel. We know this. Good for Atlanta. They should be a team that's doing this. Other signings from around the league. I found this interesting, and I didn't have this on the rundown, but I want to note this right here. Bogert also reporting Boca Juniors finalizing a deal to sign attacker Alan Velasco from FC Dallas, $10 million plus $2 million in add-ons. Ties back in with the last segment. If you're Lucho Acosta and you see Boca Juniors willing to drop $10 million for a different MLS player, what's going through your mind in that situation?
I mean, I can tell you what's going through my mind versus what is going through Lucho's mind.
All right, let's go through your mind.
My mind is Velasco is 22 years old.
Yep.
And pretty fresh off of being a highly touted Argentine prospect.
Yep.
So he probably still, he's been called up to the Argentine full national team already at 22 years old. This is the kind of player that teams in South America occasionally shell out money for. Lucho at north of 30, never been in with the Argentine national team. Probably hasn't been super well known, or at least top of mind most of his career since it's been in MLS and in Mexico. Is not the kind of player that Boca Juniors shells out big money for. But probably what's going through Lucho's mind is I'm better than him.
Yeah, so I won the MVP. So I'm the MVP of this damn league.
So they should spend that money on me.
Yeah, I'm the player that they're hoping he'll become. What the hell?
Yeah,
I just think it's funny. Funny, sad. I don't want to shit on Lucho. I never want to shit on Lucho. I can't. He can't make me hate him, no matter how hard he tries. But it is kind of sad that, this is my boyhood team. I would do anything to play for this team. Like, he'll tell any media source that'll listen how much his dream to play for Boca Juniors is. He's basically, it's everything that you can possibly think of to get their attention. And it's almost like the meme, like, dude, she's not going to fuck you, bro. It's, and then they go and they're like, we're not going to talk to you, but here's $10 million to somebody else in your league from a less successful team to a less accomplished player. And they're giving him the deal that you so desperately want. Like, if someone was offering FC Cincinnati even half that, $5 million for Lucho Acosta to Boca Juniors, he would already be a member of Boca Juniors right now. That deal would have they would have rushed to the mailbox to get that deal done to maximize the GAM conversion and just wash their hands of the situation. But apparently that deal's not out there for him.
The one to keep your eye on is Driussi at Austin is trying to force a move to Argentina, to River Plate. And Driussi is somebody who is much more similar to Lucho's profile. He's just a couple of years younger. He plays kind of the same role in MLS and has been, kind of undeniably, at least more recently, a worse player on a worse team. And so if River Plate puts out a significant fee, like we're talking like $9-10 million for Driussi, that one I can't make heads or tails of, to be honest. Yeah. But that would kind of change my thinking about what you could get for Lucho down in South America. A couple of other MLS items that I want to mention. So first, back to Atlanta. Atlanta had been linked to Kyogo Furuhashi, a Celtic striker. They signed a different Japanese player who's a much lower profile this week. And I don't know how this happened. MLS put out an article announcing that Atlanta had signed Furuhashi with quotes about the other guy. And apparently that deal then broke down. Atlanta has not signed him. It looks like they probably won't sign him, but it is pretty funny for the league to put out an article that Atlanta had signed one Japanese player when they had signed a different Japanese player. Kind of linking from Atlanta to a former Atlanta player. Joseph Martinez is close to signing with San Jose Earthquakes. Joseph is a player I think can still do well in MLS. He did well against us. I certainly would have been interested in if FC had not, already had so much money invested in the striker room, kicking the tires on him. He's kind of like the best. I was thinking about this earlier. He's kind of like DeAndre Hopkins, like the wide receiver in the NFL, where if you told me my team was signing DeAndre Hopkins, I'd always be like, oh yeah, he can still play. Yep. Like there's always a handful of guys like this in sports where it's, he's probably washed at this point, but he has such a name and his accomplishments are so great that if you tell me Joseph Martinez is signing somewhere, I'm immediately, oh yeah, he's probably good for 10 goals this year. I think he had close to 10 last year. Goals, yeah, I know, right? And then, but I'll think that for the next 5 years. Like we could be sitting here having this conversation 5 years from now, and I will still think Joseph Martinez is probably good for 5 goals or 10 goals somewhere. Yep. He had 11 goals last year for Montreal. There you go. So San Jose's been making moves. They signed Bruce Arena. They've traded for a bunch of New England players. They traded for the entire New England team under Bruce Arena. They basically swapped players with New England. They obviously they're as we said, they're close to signing Joseph. And the big deal was they traded for Chicho Arango, who was from RSL, I believe, right? From RSL, who for the first part of the year was leading. Well, was certainly firmly in the MVP conversation, if not leading it. It was basically him and Lucho putting up numbers. And then he had to go away for a couple of games for undisclosed reasons. Came back, wasn't as effective the rest of the year. I do like that the league is taking everybody who has been suspended for reasons nobody's allowed to say or willing to say, and putting them in San Jose. Yeah. Maybe there will be a tell. Maybe Arena and Arango can just chat with each other instead of do like a suspension, non-suspension type video. Instead of the San Jose Earthquakes, it's going to be the San Jose NDAs. Right. But I think that's a player that you're surprised that I think you're always surprised to see a player like that move within the league in MLS. Yeah, because he's one of the top performing DPs of the last couple of years. Obviously was great with LAFC as well. Yeah, he was the
if you asked early in the year last year, he was one of the leaders in the clubhouse for MVP, along with Cucho Hernandez, and the way Lucho Acosta was playing. The three of them were being mentioned by everyone as like, these are the guys to watch out for MVP.
Yeah. So, I think San Jose is looking pretty serious. They do currently have 4 DPs that I understand cannot be bought down, so they're going to have to move one. But I think it's a strong move to I'm looking this up. Go ahead and get the DP you want now, and then worry about moving the guy out
right
later when you have to.
As we talked about, everyone is a DP and no one is a DP right now, because everything it's the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. Club record fee of $6 million plus $1.5 million in GAM and an international spot. My question to you: if another team in MLS offered us this for Lucho Acosta, would you take it?
Wait, you said $6 million?
Yeah.
Who did what?
For the for Chicho Arango. It was a $6 million fee for Chicho last year. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
$1.5 million in GAM and an international spot. Would you take that as a return for Lucho Acosta right now in league?
No. But he's not as distressed of an asset as Arango is.
Yeah.
I think San Jose got a deal.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he's a very, very good player. I don't know. I'm just so curious where this Lucho thing is going to end up. And whenever I see a player like that move, I am curious. I don't think that the thing with Lucho is I don't think he wants out of Cincinnati specifically. I think he wants out of the United States, which I think is probably a complicating factor here. So watch this space in the league. Kits also starting to be released. Nothing on the FC Cincinnati front on that yet, but if you're interested, all sorts of teams are leaking their very, very boring MLS kits for this year. So if you're a kit watcher, check that out and watch the space as well. I put a pin in this to talk about it, but I think we're probably going to
kick it.
We're probably gonna have to talk about this a little bit later in more depth once it starts. But this Monday, which will be today as you're listening to this, there will be a major trial starting in, I believe, in Brooklyn Federal Court that has the possibility of drastically changing the outcome of soccer in the United States of America. I think it's almost as impactful. The last sports lawsuit that was this impactful, I think, for a sport was probably the O'Bannon lawsuit that ended up revolutionizing or ruining college athletics by opening up the door to NIL and players being paid. But the U.S. Soccer Federation is being sued has been sued by the defunct North American Soccer League over the league sanctioning standards. It is a lawsuit that was brought and bankrolled in large part by the New York Cosmos owner, Rocco Commisso, and his venture Traffic Sports, seeking $500 million in damages, alleging that the U.S. Soccer Federation colluded with MLS and acted in an anti-competitive manner to prevent competition from emerging in the U.S. soccer market space by setting league standards, the sanctioning standards by which leagues have to operate in order to be Division I, Division II, Division III, what have you, by setting them in such a way that it prevented any competition from arising for MLS, claiming that this is in fact the thing that did in the NASL, their inability to get that league sanctioning that they need. Starts jury selection on Monday. This trial's been going on forever, circling to this point with various motions trying to have it dismissed, summary judgment motions, what have you. The end result of this lawsuit is not going to be monetary damages. Like those are, that is what it is. This could impact in great detail how U.S. soccer regulates what leagues are allowed to compete in this league and what competes with MLS. The other thing it's going to do that I think is very interesting is they've engaged in discovery to this point to prepare for trial. A lot of what was provided in discovery or was seen in discovery, my understanding, is probably subject to some sort of a non-disclosure order prior to trial. Once a trial starts, that all goes out the window, and we're going to hear in great detail, I would imagine, a lot of the business workings of MLS and U.S. soccer that have otherwise been incredibly opaque to this point. To the outside. This is why every sports league on the planet always looks to avoid having a trial or having litigation. It's why settlements happen all the time. Ain't nobody wants their books being opened. Ain't nobody wants their details of how they run being opened. And for the first time in my lifetime, or at least in my adult lifetime, we're going to get that from a professional sports league going on trial. Am I overstating the importance of what this might be in terms of what, as a soccer fan in the United States, or the intrigue here?
I'll be honest. I haven't thought enough about what potential outcomes are, and so I always worry about overstating
right
what outcomes might be. I do think that I do think that the most obviously interesting thing is that there is going to be public testimony and public documents, assuming the trial goes forward, and you'll get to find some info. Like, I know that the circumstances that led to the creation of MLS are a big part of this lawsuit, at least part of the story that NASL is trying to tell, because the founder of MLS. So to back up, and we don't need to go into too much detail, but people may not know this. NASL used to be the top league in the United States.
Yes.
It went out of business in the 80s, and in the late 80s, the U.S. was awarded the 1994 World Cup. As part of that, as part of getting the World Cup, U.S. Soccer had to promise to start a Division I league, and they actually were supposed to get it started sooner, but they got extensions by FIFA. And so ultimately, they did start MLS, but they had various groups give pitches. And one of the pitches was by a guy named Alan Rothenberg, who was the either president or outgoing president of U.S. Soccer. And he pitched what was originally called Major MPSL, so the Major Professional Soccer League, changed, or MPLS, whatever, Major Professional League Soccer, changed the name to MLS. And as part of the pitch, it included the single entity structure that MLS is still organized under for the most part. It included the salary cap, and there hasn't been a lot of information about exactly how he was awarded the league. But it also is clear that the intention was for there only to ever be that one top tier league.
Yes.
I think that's basically undeniable. And then US Soccer also gave MLS seed money to get started that, as I understand it, MLS paid back not in dollars, but in like marketing services to
through
US
Soccer United Marketing, I believe, is how that was handled.
Yeah. So, one of the things I've always wanted to see was what other leagues were pitched, and like Pablo Maurer had a article recently about a gimmick league that tried to participate in that pitch process. But I would also like to see if there were other kind of serious league structures that were proposed, and what might have been, just out of curiosity. So anything that can get more insight into the history of how MLS came to be and MLS's relationship with US Soccer and why things are the way they are, I think can be interesting. And a lot of it is they try to just keep under wraps.
Yeah. They don't like to talk about it. They don't like to talk about the way the finances work. They don't like to talk about the relationships that they have with one another. U.S. soccer is a quasi government entity. So the ability to get documents from them under the Freedom of Information Act is more limited. And then they participate in Soccer United
I don't think
marketing.
they're a government entity at all. They're a nonprofit.
They're as the regulating body for a sports organization, though. Don't they fall under a similar situation as like the U.S. Olympics does? I
don't think they're quasi government at all. They do have the authority under the what's the guy's name? The Ted Stevens Act.
Yeah.
To regulate Olympic participation. Right. So they have some federal protections for their activities to the extent that they're like the official sanctioned body to govern soccer, Olympics and related events. But the bulk of their authority comes from their ability to, run the participation in FIFA events and through their FIFA sanctioning, essentially regulate professional soccer in the United States, right. which is not a direct government granted function by any means. It stems essentially from FIFA controls the World Cup and FIFA competitions. FIFA gets to decide eligibility for participation in the World Cup and what countries are let in. And then they delegate some local authority to country federations, and those federations get to determine some rules on professional leagues, because professional leagues have to comply with FIFA standards if players want to participate in
the World
FIFA
Cup
events.
Yeah. That like if you compete in an unsanctioned league, if a league started up in the United States that was not sanctioned by FIFA, FIFA's response would be to say that you're ineligible to participate for your country's events or to play in the World Cup because you are not competing in a FIFA sanctioned league. That's always the sort of Damocles that's hanging on over all of these federations and all these upstarts. If it's like, yeah, sure, you can break away from our cartel. Just good luck signing players who don't have any aspirations or dreams of playing for their national teams.
And that is kind of more directly aimed at in the Relevant Sports lawsuit. Relevant Sports being the name of a company that runs the International Champions Cup.
Right.
Also in the US.
relevant in the sense of it's relevant to this conversation.
Right. Where they wanted to host competitive league matches from foreign leagues in the United States. They wanted to host, like, for example, a La Liga competitive match in Miami. This violates FIFA. This violates FIFA rules by virtue of it violating U.S. soccer's rules. The interplay between FIFA rules and U.S. soccer rules is a little complicated, but to simplify, it violates U.S. soccer and FIFA rules. Relevant Sports sued, and I think that one is still going, but they were pretty successful fairly recently in getting that rule potentially struck down as violating U.S. antitrust law.
Right.
That you're creating you're partitioning a geographic market and saying, only these types of professional matches can take place in this market, and we're going to protect it from competition. Well, like, generally private organizations can't just say, I'm the only person that's allowed to sell Tupperware in the southeastern part of the United States, and my competitors are going to agree with me that I'm only going to sell Tupperware in the southeastern part of the U.S., and this guy's going to sell Tupperware in the northeastern part. These other guys are going to sell in the northwest and southwest, et cetera. That's, essentially everybody should be trying to compete in as many places as they can.
Right.
Is the idea behind competition law.
And the idea too that that FIFA can promulgate whatever rules they want, U.S. Soccer can promulgate any rules they want. They still have to comply with federal law. And if federal law in the United States disagrees with FIFA's international policy, in this country, federal law trumps whatever FIFA wants to do. Even if there are 200 and some odd sovereign nations in the world that all agree on X, if U.S. law says Y, in the United States of America, it's Y is the law of the land. I'm interested in this, and we'll see how this goes. If this trial starts, it may be worth doing a full episode on just this, even if it's a special Patreon thing or something like that, for people that want to nerd out on the law aspect of this. The bottom line to watch out for on this, and this is if you're not a lawyer, if you don't follow court proceedings, it's that everyone in this case has done, and this case has been pending for a really long time. The NASL is defunct now. There has been an effort to start the NASL back up under new management, and this will be the third or the fourth iteration of the NASL. What this is sort of shaping up to be is a redo of the USFL lawsuit against the NFL back in the 80s, where you had a competing football league that was competing against the NFL. They sued the NFL for anti-competitive behavior. By the time the lawsuit actually got to trial, the USFL had gone out of business, and the end result was them winning their lawsuit and being awarded $1 in damages. I think that's where this is headed too. But it's going to be fascinating because this has taken so long. Everyone has all of the smoking gun documents they think that will win the case in their hands right now. We're just waiting for them to become public. And as soon as they become public, that cat's out of the bag forever. And there could be any number of interesting revelations from this. If this gets spicy, Grayson and I will figure something out as the resident lawyers on this podcast to try and break this down into something that might be entertaining for everyone. We shall see. Watch this space. And with that, how about we go over to part 3 and do some Patreon questions? How about that?
Great.
All right, stick around for part 3. Kevin has been kind enough to send us some Patreon questions. We're going to do those, and then we will let you get out of here and get on with your week. All right, we're back. Grayson, Kevin was kind enough to send some Patreon questions for us to answer. So I'm not as good at reading these, and I tried not to look at them ahead of time because it's more fun when we just read and react to this in real time. So having said that, Kate D asks us, this is primarily for Grayson, did you watch Schmigadoon? And if yes, what did you think of it? I don't even know if I pronounced that correctly.
I did not. I have not watched it.
What is it?
Well, it's hard for me to answer because I haven't watched it. But
okay.
It's. I think it's also on Apple TV. But it's a musical TV show. I assume that it's a play on Brigadoon, which is a place that only temporarily exists. So I'm assuming that the conceit is that there is some type of town or something where people exist in a musical.
Aha,
only in that town. I don't know.
Here we go. The story centers around a couple from New York, both doctors, who become trapped in magical musical theater settings and learn lessons about love and happiness.
Well, see, I could just write this stuff.
Yeah. Let's see here. It looks pretty good. A lot of musical numbers. Wow. Well, I mean, if they're living in a musical, of course they would. Rotten Tomatoes gives it an 89% approval based on 79 reviews. Site's critical consensus reads, Schmigadoon, its clever inside theater jokes may not be for everyone. There's no denying the joy of seeing this talented ensemble sing and dance their hearts out. When I see these musical theater references might not be for everyone, that is a very strong tell that these musical references are probably for you, Grayson.
So I typically have not watched musical TV shows. I know there have been a few over the years. The only one I recall watching was Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which was very good for the most part. Definitely the first couple for the most part, it was very good. I didn't love the last season, but the songs in that were written by the guy from Fountains of Wayne, who has since sadly passed away, who also wrote the song That Thing You Do.
Oh yeah.
And has been
the Meters.
Yeah, he's kind of I personally think he was a genius, just in the ability to kind of mimic any kind of genre of song that the circumstance might call for.
That Thing You Do is criminally underrated as a movie. Just really, really fun.
It's very fun.
Music in that is incredible. Like, I don't think people understand how hard it is to write a song that plausibly sounds like something that would have been a bop in a previous generation. Because if you could do that, you would have written the song originally and made a lot of money on it. Like, the idea of like creating a song like that, it's
my pet peeve is, and this is one of the reasons I have so much respect for That Thing You Do. My pet peeve is when a movie or show or something is about someone who we're told is a very talented artist in some form, whether it's like a writer or a stand-up comedian or a musician, and we don't get shown proof of it. Like in That Thing You Do, they played the song That Thing You Do all the way through like 3 times. Right. Yeah. And they play multiple other songs that the band plays. And you're like, yeah, this is kind of plausible.
Yeah.
That this would have been a popular band at that period of time that we've all just forgotten about. Right. It's like very perfect for that. But, you know, I am thinking about specifically like the show Hacks, where it's about stand-up comedians and a comedy writer. And at no point in time do they ever like show a funny stand-up set or show this writer write something that's like genuinely funny.
Yeah. Did you watch The Marvelous Miss Maisel?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking there too when you said that, because I was trying to think like, yeah, actually Midge was pretty funny. So like I was trying to think if that fell within the line or whatnot. As soon as you said Hacks, I was thinking about that. So no, I guess you'll have to watch this and review. I don't know. Maybe in some future off season where there's actually an off season. Maybe in this rumored extended off season.
Maybe in 2026.
The 2026 where the off season that will never end as we switch to the winter calendar. All right. If you want to be a member of the lovely Patreons of the Post Cincy, there's a link somewhere, I think in the show description. You can click on that. You can join. You can pay us $2.
If you can find this podcast, you can find the Patreon.
You can find the Patreon. You can, as of right now, there's only one tier on the Patreon. It's $2 a month. We get that money. We pay our hosting bills. We don't have any sponsors right now signed up, or we don't have sponsors yet since the season hasn't started. So this is our primary source of revenue right now. We are living on $2 a month, which, if you do the math, doesn't split evenly between 3 people. So it's tough for us right now in the club. But if you want to be a member of the Patreons, $2 gets you the opportunity to ask a question of us, which Kate D did, and we didn't have a great answer for because we haven't seen the show. Hey, still a great question. Also gets you some other perks like changing the color of your name on the Discord. I mean, can you really put a price on that? The answer is yes, it's $2. So sign up. We thank all of our Patreons here and we answer their questions. Michael P asks this: Chief thinks that Thanksgiving is the worst holiday. What are the best, worst minor holidays? The examples he gives are President's Day and Arbor Day. And sir, you're trying to claim Arbor Day as a terrible holiday. I just think that means you hate the environment. But Grayson, where are we on the best or the worst minor holiday? I have some thoughts on this.
The best holiday is
minor holiday.
Best minor holiday, right? I'll go with Labor Day.
Yeah, I like Labor Day. Minor holiday?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to count like Sweetest Day or like. Okay.
Well, I mean, like, I will, because those are awful.
National Cherry Pie Day or whatever, right?
Right.
Like, I'm talking like days that somebody might plausibly have off of work.
Right.
So I would say best is Labor Day. It, it's a good time of year to have a holiday.
Not Memorial Day. Memorial Day, we're kicking the summer off for Memorial Day. Labor Day, we're sort of ending the summer.
Yeah. So, I'm putting Labor Day, because I like that end of summer holiday weekend. The worst holiday, I'm going to go with President's Day. Because one, I think a lot of places don't take it off at all. And if they had put a more important holiday between like MLK Day and Memorial Day, there wouldn't be like a 4-month break.
Right.
Where basically nobody has a holiday.
Easter.
I don't know, like a lot of private employers that have like Easter as like a official holiday.
They really did change that to you have 2 personal days to use for whatever religious holiday that you deem appropriate. And that's like the Good Friday one.
Also, President's Day, I think, was originally like Washington's birthday.
Right. We shoehorned a bunch of other people into it.
And we shoehorned all the other presidents in. And like, I'm not here to like be a character witness for like George Washington, but there's like some pretty obvious reasons why you would single him out. Right. Among US presidents. But like, I have to now celebrate like Warren Harding at the same time.
I mean, I don't know. I'm sure Warren had some things worth celebrating. I can't name off the top of my head, but I'm sure they were there.
I mean, he certainly enjoyed himself.
Yeah.
And that's worth celebrating.
Always. Best minor holiday. I don't know. I'm Irish. St. Patrick's Day. I like the fact that everybody just lets go for a day. I enjoy that. I like Guinness. I enjoy the fact that you go into any bar and it's the only day of the year you can be reliably expecting to get Flogging Molly and the Dropkick Murphys on the jukebox. That sparks joy. I like that. Minor holiday, opening day here in Cincinnati. Love opening day. I consider that I think every city in the country should have. So you have federal holidays that everybody gets off. Every state should have a state holiday and every city should have a city holiday. And you don't get the Dayton holiday off if you're in Cincinnati, but you get the Cincinnati holiday off if you're here. You move to Dayton, you get the Dayton holiday off. And every state should have one where Ohio has this day, Michigan has this day, Indiana has this day. We need to normalize, like, federal holidays are one thing. Let's get some state and some city holidays. And if we're going to have a city holiday, opening day needs to be a city holiday in the city of Cincinnati. There already is kind of like this low key push to do that. I know a lot of places will give half days on opening day. I think we just need to normalize in this city that opening day is a city holiday and declare that nobody's working on that day and just give everybody the day off. That's my take. I'm sticking to it. It's important. I love it. Worst holiday. I'm going to break your rule here. All right, so like there's a day every day, and it's this stupid shit. And there's this woman that comes up with all these, or this person that comes up with all these on the idea that every day should feel important or every day should have something. There's a story. It's cute. It gets annoying. There are a couple of Hallmark holidays that I think just need to go away forever. Sweetest Day being one of them. Boss's Day being the other one. Boss's Day is the dumbest thing on the planet. I don't understand why there needs to be a Boss's Day. Look, I don't understand why any of your coworkers need to have a day. I don't know why there needs to be an administrative professionals day or whatever it is. I don't understand why we need to be giving gifts to each other or having days where you feel obligated to chip in to buy a gift for this person one way or the other. We just work together. We don't need to do that. Let's do away with Boss's Day. Let's do away with Administrative Professionals Day. Let's do away with, Mailroom Guy Day or whatever it is. Just let's less reasons to need to buy a card, to feel the need to buy a card, or to feel weird that you were the only person that didn't realize this Hallmark holiday was today and you were supposed to have done something at the workplace or done something for the significant other in your life. Let's just agree that those don't exist anymore.
I understand why you have Administrative Professionals Day, especially in the United States.
But I don't like it
because it's reminding people that if you do like kind of minimal nice things for people that work for you, you don't have to give them raises. It's like reminding managers, right, oh, I have to make sure I have to be like, okay, you guys can wear jeans on Friday.
Right.
Because we're like a nice place to work. We care about culture here.
Right.
And we keep people here through culture. Right. And culture doesn't go in your 401k.
Right. What is the worst red flag you can have for a place when they're like, no, we're a fun company. We do X. Is it?
Oh, man. There's so many.
Yeah. God, just pay me more money. It's just like, just give me more money. I'll make my own fun with that. Also, even though I just ranted or just said about how much I hate these holidays, life pro tip, if you are about to enter the workforce or you're about to start your first professional job, if you're one of the younger listeners to the postcast, first off, why? But second of all, if no one tells you, let me be the first to tell you, the most important person that works in your office is every member of the administrative staff. And you should be unfailingly polite and unfailingly kind to every single one of them, because an admin can make your life at work way easier, or they can make your life miserable. It costs you nothing to be kind to your administrative staff, and it will pay dividends for the rest of your working life.
It is sad how many people need to be told, essentially, like, be nice to, well, one, like everybody, right? But two, like even if it's like not your place of business, if you're visiting another office, be very nice and friendly to the administrative professional that's staffing the desk, or the administrative professional who works with people from other businesses that you encounter on a day-to-day basis. Because the first person that is going to be told if you're rude is the person that person works for.
Yeah.
And that is going to color, even you might think your relationship is with that administrative professional's boss. It might technically be true, but it's also going through everybody who works for that person.
Yeah. Told this to every young lawyer I trained in my previous job, and that was that the person who runs the courtroom is the bailiff. The person who runs the courtroom are the court staff. The judge does very little. And if you're mean to any of these people, the first thing they're going to do is go back and tell their boss what an asshole you were. And you're never going to win that fight. Like, if you need to be told this, it's a problem. But dear God, kindness costs nothing.
Well, if you're
in the
like,
professional
if you're
world.
Pharmaceutical sales and you're going to a skin doctor because you're selling like acne medication, right? And then you're a jerk to the front desk because they asked you to wait 5 minutes, and you're like, "Well, I really need to see the doctor right now because I represent Eli Lilly, right?" You think you're going to make a sale?
No.
Maybe one, but like maybe not two.
No. Because even if you make the sale, the first thing is, wait, you actually bought from that jerk? Don't do that.
Right.
Ian Rexroad asks, how will FC get on the bad side of pro this year? We always do something.
I know what it's going to be. Kevin Denkey, he's going to be allowed to get beat up. Like they're not going to do a very good job of calling when he's fouled because of his frame. Mm-hmm. And they are also going to call fouls on him that are just him using his frame in a fair but advantageous way.
Right.
And so that's how we're going to get on the bad side is he's not going to be called well, and that will lead to frustration.
Oh, I've already seen this coming. Kevin Denkey, like, we will hear it within the first, I'll say, like 6 weeks of the season. Maybe it'll be a little longer, maybe the first 10. But at some point, we will hear Kevin Denkey has a reputation as a dirty player. And It will be like, where in God's name did that come from? And it's like, oh, that's just what the referees think about him. And it's like, oh, you got to be shitting me. It's like the Yuya Kubo is a dirty player. Yep. Where? On what planet?
Well, it's like when Obi came over, they didn't know how to call him.
No.
Because he made tackles that, frankly, they weren't good enough to see. And they just assumed that they were fouls.
And rather than get better at their job, it was easier just to blow the whistle. The answer is that a very, very frustrated Lucho Acosta, having not found a transfer that materialized where he wanted to go, will do something and take out his frustrations on an official, and we will be paying for that for the rest of the year. because they're a cartel and they're the worst people on the planet. We'll finish up with this one because we've already ran long for a off-season episode. They all run this long. Who am I kidding? Brock Bermel asks, and I think this is something we all find ourselves wondering on a daily basis. Grayson, why did the chicken cross the road?
Because their neighbor didn't shovel their sidewalk.
Where are you on? Are you on team shovel the sidewalk?
I'm mixed. I do think that if you have inconsistency on the same side of the road, it can be difficult. I mean, this is talking about somebody who lives in a city. So
Right.
like there's like sidewalks in front of my house that people pass through. So if some people like down the hill shoveled their sidewalks and then there's runoff from the snow for people who didn't shuffle their sidewalks that melts down, that's going to create ice.
Yeah.
Right. Although I think generally often as a pedestrian, I prefer the places that don't have the shoveled sidewalks all the way through, because it just seems like it's going to be easier to avoid, suddenly and surprisingly stepping on ice.
Right. Where are you on team? I heard from my uncle who heard from my grandfather one time that if you shovel the snow in front of your walkway or on the sidewalk and somebody slips and falls, you're at fault because you have created the perception of safety. Whereas if you just leave the snow as it is, it's an act of nature and you're not liable for slip and fall accidents on your own sidewalk.
I'm not sure about that.
It's like the biggest, that's like the most oft repeated urban legend of shoveling snow. And I'm convinced it was just started by a lawyer who was like, I don't feel like shoveling snow. Do you realize what kind of liability we're creating by doing this?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who say things confidently that probably shouldn't. And, sometimes that's me for sure.
Yeah, obviously.
I think the odds are if somebody slips in front of your house and you shoveled, and somebody slips in front of your house and you didn't shovel, I would say the odds are even in either circumstance, like that either person is equally likely to sue you. And you're like, well, could they win?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's not your problem at that. I mean, that doesn't matter.
Right.
To most people, it doesn't matter because getting sued costs you money. And up to a certain point, it's going to cost you at least X amount of money, whether you win or not. And then two, it's also probably more your homeowner's insurance's
It's true.
problem.
I always look at this from the perspective as a litigator of working backwards from trial. What would I feel more confident defending to 12 ordinary citizens and a jury? Here is my client who attempted to do the right thing by shoveling the snow on his walkway. And here is this person who slipped and fell that we feel very bad for, but like is just looking for a payday. Or here is my client who did absolutely nothing to his sidewalk and this person slipped and fell. It's to a certain extent, there is a twinge of the shopping cart problem here, where what kind of society do we want to live in? Do you want to live in the society where everybody returns the shopping cart or where everybody doesn't? Do you want to live in the society where everybody goes out and shovels the walkway so that at least you're not trudging through a foot of snow to get from point A to point B? Or do we want to live in the society where the hell with you, I'm afraid of getting sued? And I would take my chances with the former rather than the latter.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. There you go.
But why did the chicken cross the road, Chief?
You'd
have to ask the chicken.
I don't know. I'm going to say because on the other side of the road, they were actually showing the FC Cincinnati game, but the other side was showing the Indiana game on TV, and they didn't want to watch that. Oh, wait, no, they didn't put the Indiana game on. Whatever. What have you. Either way, if you see a chicken crossing the road, ask him instead. I don't know. The hell with it. Grayson,
I do appreciate that the chicken appears to have
agency.
Sufficient room so that like there is a road to cross, right?
Right.
Because we're not doing, we are pro, cage-free, pasture-raised, non-cruelty chicken.
Free range chicken. The chicken can choose to cross the road or not cross the road, wherever it so chooses. Yeah, I'm glad we didn't choose a chicken as a mascot. We'd have to answer this type of question more often. I think the lion was a way superior choice. Gary the chicken just doesn't have the same ring as Gary the lion. I'm kidding. Gary the chicken is a fire name. I like that a lot, actually.
Yeah, Gary the chicken's pretty good.
Gary the chicken sounds like he's a lot funnier. Gary the lion sounds like he's a lot scarier.
Yep.
Either way, they're both in middle management. Grayson, do we have anything more for the people today?
No, that's it.
All right. Enjoy your drive. Enjoy Park City. You're not driving to Park City, but you'll be in Park City the next time I think we talk to you. Everyone out there, enjoy your day. Enjoy your week. We are still on the 1 episode a week schedule until we get a little closer to the start of the season. Sorry to disappoint. I promise we'll try to fill in the gaps somewhere. But anyway, Grayson, do we have anything more for the people?
No.
Right. And on that note, fuck Columbus.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Cincy Postcast. It is a production of The Post Cincy. You can check us out at thepostcincy.com or just click a link in the description to check out some of our written work. It also has links to our social media accounts across all sorts of different platforms, including YouTube, where we are trying to do more and more video content. Please, dare I say it, like and subscribe and leave a comment. But no, that would be really, really helpful. I also want to give a thank you to Jim Trace and the Makers. They're a local Cincinnati band who provided all of the music for this episode. We love having them on board. You can check them out. Again, link in the description of this episode to find out where they might be playing shows next or where you can listen to more of their music. Also want to give a massive, massive thank you to the awesome and very attractive patrons over on Patreon. It is a voluntary subscription that people take out with no real promise of anything extra that keep this show afloat. And we are so, so thankful to those of you that have decided to take that commitment. If you do like the show, or at least just want to engage with other people who have listened to the show and want to talk about FC Cincinnati, MLS, soccer, or really anything else, you can go on over to Discord. Again, link in the description. Lots of links in the description where you can find a link to the Discord. That's where we are keeping the conversation going 24/7. It feels like it's a really fun group of people in there just talking about FC Cincinnati and, like I said, just about everything else. And finally, I'll say it. If you liked this episode, and given the fact that you've made it all the way to the end, I have to assume you either like it or for some reason cannot reach the stop button. Please share this episode with a friend or family member or someone who likes FC Cincinnati. The best way for us to grow is from a personal recommendation from somebody who likes it. And if that's you, please tell other people. And if you don't have any friends, feel free to give us a review on whatever your podcast platform of choice is. We'll take anything we can get. But again, a huge, huge thank you to everybody for listening to the show. I am blown away that anybody listens to this. So again, I well and truly mean this. Thank you so much for listening.